There you go. I'm resident of Collinwood, Joel Sage for YouTube, joined by my buddy Butch Rosenbalm. We're here to talk two movies here tonight. Gunfight at the OK Corral and Hour of the Gun. Both Westerns are about Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday, but both Westerns have differences and similarities. Some similarities, but a lot of differences. Burt, first of all, I usually ask when you saw these. I'm going to ask something different. What did you think of Burt Lancaster and Kirk Douglas, Wyatt Earp, Doc Holliday? What did you think?
You know, I've said this before. I'm not a real big Burt Lancaster fan, but say this: he has a very restrained acting style. Let's call it. I mean, just kind of reserved, and the proverbial doesn't have a lot to say until there's something worth saying. That being said, I thought he did a fantastic job in this film. It played towards the strengths of the character and his strengths, and it kind of reminded me of Kurt Russell's interpretation of Wyatt Earp. In both cases, Doc Holliday is given a more broad field to work with. It actually kind of reminded me also of William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy as Kirk and Spock. How Spock's very restrained, very very somber, and Kirk's the excited one. And it did. I really liked it. I'm not going to say I think Gunfight at the OK Corral is a bad film. I think it's the lesser of these two films, but they worked really well together. I really enjoyed watching them together.
Now I'm going to get into a lot. We're going to get into a lot with this film before we get into Hour of the Gun. There's some accuracy issues, and some things they get right too. Gunfight at the OK Corral does get some things right. Not necessarily about the OK Corral, but other things. Actually, I will spoil this a bit early. Doc Holliday, this is the only Western where Doc Holliday does get a bullet in the arm at the OK Corral, and he does in this movie. So that's accurate. That's true. I mean, I give them that. Now, so I know there's other things to get into, and we won't. But so with this, I think they do a lot. They have really great look. Kirk Douglas, great actor. Burt Lancaster, great actor, and they have really, really great chemistry. And they all So they actually do a movie called 7 Days in May, which is great movie, right? In my opinion, better than this one. No offense to the people who made this. Just they've always had this great chemistry of working together. So to see them here working together just as well, and again, their chemistry is always, it's not the same as 7 Days in May. And that's the important thing with Douglas and Lancaster. Anytime they work together, they didn't try to do the same thing. They didn't try to portray the same, again, because though they weren't portraying the same characters, they didn't try to play it off as, oh, we're best buds.
Yeah.
And I like that they do that here because it made sense. Now, here's something they do get right. Accurate. He meets Doc Holliday in Texas. That is correct. He does meet Wyatt Earp does meet Doc Holliday in Texas. That is one correct. He meets him at I want to say a gambling boat, though. It's not in a saloon, so there's that. But good, Butch, did you want to make a point? I'm sorry if I
always thought that they met when Wyatt was looking, I forget who he's looking for, and he goes up to a mining town and met Duck there.
Yeah. I think he might have. I know again, Holiday. And I was talking about this with my wife. I said Holiday was a dentist he actually got his dentistry in the great state of Pennsylvania.
anyone that doesn't know where Joel lives.
Sadly, he contracts tuberculosis from his mother, and well, that's he doesn't last as a dentist too long. He decides to become a gambler and a gunfighter. And here's where I want to get your thoughts on this too. In my opinion, here's where I think Kirk Douglas's character gets it right, where his portrayal is right, and you don't really get this out of too many Doc Holliday's performances. Kirk Douglas, his Doc Holliday hints that he'd rather die by a bullet than tuberculosis. Yep. And I secretly, again, I can't prove this, but I secretly think that was the real Doc Holliday to a degree.
Oh, I agree. It's like I know I hate comparing real people to fictional characters.
Yep.
One of my views on the Punisher, Marvel Comics, the Punisher is one of the reasons he's able to survive so long is because he does not give a damn.
Yeah.
He is ready, willing. And if you're wondering what I'm doing, I'm single parent tonight, and the kids had to go outside. So that's why I'm walking around. You're getting bad light. Apologies. But yeah, he does not care. And therefore, it kind of gives him an edge because, it's like the samurai thought that, we're dead and we're going into battle to regain our lives, which, sometimes in battle, all it takes it's mental to get through it. You might be facing the same somebody that's just trained just as good as you are, and you just have to have an edge. Come on. Okay, don't take it. Sorry. Give them treats after they go outside, and Callie didn't want to get. But yeah, I agree. Doc Holliday has a complete death wish.
Yeah.
And yeah, he doesn't want. I mean, think about it. For anybody that doesn't know about tuberculosis, you don't want to die. So, yeah.
No. And that's what we did a movie too, where we talked about a famous writer's mother having tuberculosis. So the thing with this movie too is, if you want to get anybody over playing Doc Holliday in the 50s, you know what you have them do? You have them kill a character Lee Van Cleef is playing, and they will be over instantly. Just ask Butch.
It's funny when that scene first started, I don't know if I turned and looked or something, but I didn't catch it was Lee Van Cleef, and I'm like, oh, Lee Van Cleef. I'm like, oh shit, he's gonna die. Guess what?
As soon as I say it, because I hadn't seen this in such a long time. Okay, I'm thinking, I know DeForest Kelly's in this as one of the Eric brothers, Morgan, I believe. And I'm thinking, isn't Lee Van Cleef in it? Now I must be thinking of another maybe. And I'm thinking, God damn it, yes, he is. There's Lee Van Cleef. And then as soon as I see he's gonna be kill bait for Doc Holliday, I'm like, oh shit, this is gonna end bad. This is gonna end real bad.
Yeah, it's always good to see Lee Van Cleef, even if it's only for a few minutes.
There was a time in westerns where Lee Van Cleef was pretty much treated like a teenager was in a horror movie. Kill bait.
Bad guy number 3. He's not bad guy number 1. The Emperor. He's not bad guy number 2. The Dragon, Darth Vader. He's number 3. Kirk, Spock, and somebody else beamed down. Who's not coming back?
Well, we know who to put the smart money on. Who is? Now, if Butch were tracking them down, none of them would be coming back. That's another thing, dude. What did you think of DeForest Kelly as Morgan Earp here?
Well, I've been a Star Trek fan for many decades now, and he pops up in a lot of places. But he used to always play. I think we touched on this. Was it War? I think it was Warlock.
Yep.
Henry Fonda. He usually played, pun intended, a lot heavy. He wasn't the main bad guy. He was basically Levon Cleave. I mean, none of them, neither one of them really was the main bad guy.
Yeah.
But it's just so funny because I mean, I literally, from about the age of 7 or 8, started watching Star Trek. And spoiler alert, I'm in my 50s now, and it's just he was always, even when Dr. McCoy was kind of gruff or maybe a little not necessarily mean, but he as someone once said, he believed a little suffering was good for the soul, and I've always thought that for him. But to see him play a bad guy, here's Dr. McCoy and he's going to kill you, and you're like, huh? You don't realize what a good actor does, even when you've seen them for decades.
Yeah, this movie is more another difference between this and the Hour of the Gun, besides the cast, is we have a very unique song at the beginning of this movie, which I enjoy. What did you think of that?
Did not. I'll just leave it at that. But back in the 50s, that was very common. I mean, look at Rio Bravo, the movie Ringo with Lauren Green, yes, Ben Cartwright or Commander Adama, take your choice. Singing, more speaking. There's several westerns that have a song, some which work. I mean, I tell you one I think is kind of underappreciated is War Wagon, also with Kirk Douglas, John Wayne. But there's a really catchy little song, and I think that's, the song in my opinion, for OK Corral just doesn't work, but War Wagon does. Maybe it's a little...
Where it doesn't work most is its accuracy. Boot Hill Cemetery is not in Texas; it's in Tombstone, Arizona. So there's, again, I've talked about how with westerns with historical figures, when you have actors playing historical figures, you're going to have accuracy issues. And like, to me, like, for the most part, like, the most accurate film we get is Wyatt Earp. No offense to Tombstone. Tombstone is accurate for the most part. Now, the one thing where they mostly get it wrong is Doc Holliday did not make it through the Vendetta ride. He was, by the time the Vendetta ride was near its end, I believe, he was in Denver, Colorado. In a doctor's, basically getting treated for tuberculosis. He ended up dying there, and as sad as that is, it's accurate. And now, another thing too is the gunfight at the OK Corral happened in October. It was that's another thing none of these films get. It was snowing the day it happened, and no film portrays that at all.
There was snow on the ground, as one of the things, the Wikipedia article I was reading. It didn't affect the fight, but it talked about, there was something about maybe somebody's steps or something.
Yeah.
That there had been snow on the ground that morning. So
yeah, that's the funny thing. It's like, I do remember this with Wyatt Earp. You do, and Tombstone. Both, you can see all the actors' breaths, so they got the cold part right, but no snow. And I just think it's just something they don't want to play. I don't think they're doing it on purpose. I just feel they want to get as much, again, 2-hour films. They want to get as much in as possible with dialogue and stuff. So they're focused on other things. And I just think that's why we haven't seen it, especially the two most accurate films being Tombstone and Wyatt Earp. Now with this, this one's, it has some fun to it. It still has the seriousness to it. as well. I enjoyed the early interaction with, though it's off too, with Wyatt Earp and the woman he wants to be with for the rest of his life. He goes, I got to go help my brother. I got to go help Morgan in Arizona. So you get him leaving to go to Tombstone to help Morgan, again, who's played by DeForest Kelley in this movie. And he's going against the Clantons and the McClowry, Clantons, McClowry, and Johnny Ringo, obviously. We've touched upon. What are your scale 1 to 10? How bad do you think Johnny Ringo was?
Somewhere around a 7.
Yeah.
The Clanton gang was known for wrestling cattle in Mexico and then bringing it to America and vice versa, which, give or take, it's pretty smart because the people looking for the cattle in America probably ain't going to go to Mexico and vice versa. I tell you though, I will say my favorite portrayal of Johnny Ringo is in Tombstone with Michael Biehn.
Yeah.
And because I've always liked, well, maybe not when you were a kid. When I was a kid, in comic books, they'd always have the heroes and the villains running toward each other. Here would be Superman, and here would be Lex Luthor, and here would be Batman, and here would be the Joker. They're alternate number, if you will. And I think one of the things that Tombstone did really well is made Johnny Ringo very much a counterpoint to God. And I'll be honest with you, I barely remember Johnny Ringo being in Gunfight at OK Corral. I mean, I know he's in there, but I don't know. It's like he was just, he's just a gun,
And he's more antagonistic toward Doc Holliday than he is anything else. I think that's another thing too, where Big Nose Kate is sort of flirting around with him. Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp's friendship gets called into question by Big Nose Kate and stuff. Even though when you look at the movie early on, it's Big Nose Kate who goes to Wyatt Earp, goes, "You got to help Doc." And then the one thing too is they bring up the lynch mob scene. Now, by Tombstone and Wyatt Earp's account, the lynching scene never involves Doc Holliday. It involves another outlaw, and Wyatt Earp stops the lynching from happening by pulling a gun, not letting the outlaw go. So they're the Tombstone and Wyatt Earp have the more accurate version. If you want to go watch those movies, with this movie, they decide to have Doc Holliday be the one in jail, and there's a lynch mob coming for him. Wyatt Earp says, I can't stand a lynch mob," and he helps Big, in a sense, break Doc Holliday out of jail with Big Kate. In a sense, he assists, and then Doc Holliday leaves, and it heads to Dodge City where Wyatt Earp is. It's like, don't follow me. This is like the ultimate "your friend is stalking you" movie. Which I enjoy too.
Yeah, there's a scene between Doc and Kate when they're arguing, and this completely sappy, sentimental music starts playing. And for me, that was more out of place than the song at the beginning.
Yeah.
I know we're going to probably keep commenting on and comparing to Tombstone and Wyatt Earp, but both of these are good films.
Yeah,
okay, I'm not going to speak for Jewel. These may not be our favorite versions, but they're pretty good. But you also have to remember, if you've never seen this film, particularly in this case, I'm talking about Gunfight at OK Corral. It's a product of its time.
Yeah.
I think they're done. I think they came, or they, excuse me, they came out. I think exactly 10 years. I think one's 57, the other's 67 or something like that. But they're products of their time, and that was the thing. The kind of pointless romance between Wyatt and I don't even remember her name. Sorry, I watched these 2 weeks ago, and poor Joel was out, so names are escaping me at this point. But I think that was an attempt to bring in, Josie Marcus. I think she was sort of based on her, but it seems weird. They introduced this character, and her and Wyatt, start having a relationship, and then all of a sudden, well, I've got to go help my brother, and then she's gone. It's like, well, what was the point of that? It seemed kind of wasted.
I swear to God, that scene's filler. It's nothing but filler.
Has to be. I think that's why she's actually. I think it may be why she's the character is added in is to pad the time.
Yeah.
For anybody, oh, by the way, for anybody that doesn't know, both of these films are directed by a fine director by the name of John Sturges, who brought us many other wonderful westerns, including The Magnificent Seven. Yeah. So, John knows his way around a western.
Yeah, one of the most, again, we've talked about directors who are known and, some who are underrated. John Sturges, to me, is top 5. He's really one very, very smart director. He knows how to shoot a western and aim his cameras. You're never going to get a bad shot in a western with him. And he always tells his stories a tad different than what you've seen other westerns told. And I think that's, again, westerns were a very common thing throughout the 50s and 40s, 50s, 60s. And John Sturges knew when he does the Out of the Gun, I know we're not there yet, he does it very differently than he does this film. And he does it more for the time of the 60s than he did the 50s, which, Gunfight at the OK Corral, you're right, it's a product of its time. I'll give you another one that's based on Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday that's a product of its time is My Darling Clementine, which has Henry Fonda in it. It's in black and white, and it's very good movie, fun movie, has a shitload of accuracy issues. If you want to look at a film that is very, very inaccurate for the most part, go watch My Darling Clementine. I love Henry Fonda, but it has a lot of accuracy issues.
Well, it's one of the things I kept reading about Gunfight at OK Corral is basically Sturges was just ripped for the historical inaccuracies. One of the biggest is when we finally get to the end of our first film, Gunfight at OK Corral, amazingly enough, when they have the gunfight at OK Corral, it goes on for like 8 minutes.
Yeah.
Shoot like hundreds of bullets. And it is nothing at all related to what happened, the historical gunfight at OK Corral. And apparently he seemed to have taken a little bit of umbrage at that when we get to Hour of the Gun, which opens with the gunfight at the OK Corral, which I personally think is a much better place to start the film.
Yeah.
But it is much more historically accurate, taking from the testimonies given the trial hearings in Tombstone. And honestly, until we did this, I always thought Hour of the Gun was intended to be the sequel, and apparently it was not intended. He did Gunfight at OK Corral. That's it. And I don't know how much of the complaints about historical inaccuracy spurred him on, but then he decides to do Hour of the Gun, which, amusingly enough, I saw was the one I saw first. And it even starts with this film is historically accurate, like in all caps. This is how it happened! Exclamation point! No, you're still off, but you're much closer than you were.
Yeah, to be fair, me and Butch aren't picking on John Sturges or the films themselves. but we are going to call out accuracy issues when we see them in the movie, because with a lot of the westerns we've covered, they're not based on real people. Now with Wyatt Earp, Tombstone, Gunfight at the OK Corral, and Hour of the Gun, they are based on real people, real actual people, that their lives were made into a movie. And a lot of the movies you see, again, I've said this, my favorite actor is Henry Fonda, and he did a Wyatt Earp movie called My Darling Clementine. That movie is full of accuracy issues, let me assure you. And again, these movies have accuracy issues too. But again, they do get some things right. I pointed out they have, again, and I believe this is the only movie that has it, where Doc Holliday gets shot in the arm at the gunfight at the OK Corral. And here's the thing, he does. So, I mean, yeah, no, it didn't last that long. It lasted, what, a couple seconds, I think. And I love how you're right. I love how they open the gunfight at the OK Corral with Hour of the Gun, and I love how they too, between Hour of the Gun and Gunfight at the OK Corral, neither film was shot the same way. And give John Sturges again. I'll give you my opinion what I think John Sturges did Hour of the Gun. I think he, again, keep in mind, he does it in the 60s. I think John Sturges may have been the first director who saw the writing on the wall, the Westerns ending. And he wanted to cash in before they did. He may have. I'm not going to say he did, but he may have.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, he was a rather smart guy. One of my favorite things reading was apparently he met Akira Kurosawa, and Kurosawa told him he loved The Magnificent Seven, which John Sturges took as one of the highest compliments he could ever get. So this is not some guy stumbling and bumbling in his way into a film.
No.
He knows what he's doing. So whereas some people, I'm not going to name any names, John Wayne, thought westerns would never end, at least seemingly. Yeah, some people are like, yeah, we can't ride this horse forever, pun intended.
Love how you did that just there. But
stuck in my throat.
Yeah. It's okay. It's okay. What did you think of the cast for Gunfight at the OK Corral altogether?
All in all, it's a really good cast. I mean, you start with Spartacus. It's Doc Holliday. Like I said, Burt Lancaster did a fantastic job in this role. Played to his strengths, and I thought Kate was a kind of whiny, wishy-washy woman. Yeah. And please, Doc, if you'll take me back, I won't do it again. Oh God. I mean, again, product of its time. But yeah, I think it's a good cast, and I'm going to say this though. I think Hour of the Gun has a better cast.
I think Hour of the Gun's a better movie than this.
Well, on that part of yet, but yeah, I do too.
Hypothetically, if we would have never got Tombstone or Wyatt Earp, Hour of the Gun really is your first dark vendetta Wyatt Earp. And you pointed this out too a couple weeks ago. Sorry, it's my fault we're delayed, by the way. So, but the fact that you cast a really, really great actor who's known for Westerns too, support your local sheriff and support your local gunfighter. I'm talking about James Garner. Also, he's known for Maverick.
Rockford Files.
Yeah, in Rockford Files. Really, really plays one of the dark. I'm going to go ahead and say he plays the darkest version of Wyatt Earp. I still have, no offense to Kevin Costner and Kurt Russell, I dare say his version of Wyatt Earp's darker than theirs.
In what he has, yes. he plays a mean son of a bitch. There's the other way to put it. This scene when he finds out they killed Morgan and or they've shot older brother. Anyway, and he finds out there's a witness, and like he's got the man's hand, and he's like who did you see? Who did you see? I mean, he's going to break the guy's arm, and the guy's like, you can break my arm, I can't talk. And I mean, think about that for a second. Here's the guy that's basically running for sheriff, and he's going to break a witness's arm because the witness won't talk. And he take in both films, the other film, Wider, even when they're doing the Vendetta run, and you can tell. I mean, Kurt Russell is no shrinking violet. I mean, we see them, but it's still, while it's kind of intense, he's still, quote, a good guy, and I feel the same way toward Kevin Costner. And not to say that James Gardner's the mean, horrible guy, but his Wyatt Earp is, he doesn't care. And there's a point where Jason Robards, Doc Holliday, says, these aren't warrants, these are hunting license. And that is exactly the truth.
Yeah, Jason Robards almost steals this movie a bit because he's a great actor.
He does. Yeah. That's actually in my notes here. Jason Robards, he gets all the best lines, all the best scenes, and he steals the film. Again, you have a very restrained performance with the character of Wyatt Earp. So again, Doc Holliday gets to be the flamboyant, Lancer. He's the one. He gets to do the cool stuff while Wyatt's busy being the good guy.
Yeah, and this too, you do get a touch of. This is also the first movie to touch on the sheriff election that I've talked about, where Wyatt Earp wanted to run for sheriff, and because he wanted to be the sheriff collected the taxes in Tombstone, Arizona, and he got the money. He wanted the money, and his brother ends up running in the movie, and he gets shot in the back playing a game of pool, and dies. Again, this is all going to, which, yes, that is accurate for the most part. He does, his brother, I think it's James Earp, gets shot in the back.
Morgan
gets shot in the back, and the other guy who also gets killed. There's another brother who gets killed, and you have this moment where literally Morgan basically is, by the way, he's going to lose his arm in real life.
Virgil's going to lose his
Virgil's going to lose his arm in real life. Morgan's going to die, and Morgan dying is one of the most interesting moments of when you look at the real life of Wyatt Earp, because in the movie Tombstone, Morgan Earp is portrayed as this guy who's been researching religion. And I think both Tombstone and both Wyatt Earp get this 1,000% correct, that he was both researching God and like the afterlife in a sense. And in this movie, it's mentioned briefly too. It's mentioned a bit, tongue in cheek. And again, because in this movie, the darkest character you're going to meet is Wyatt Earp. His James Gardner's Wyatt Earp. He is more Punisher than Punisher. No, I'm not exaggerating that.
No, very much angel or fallen angel. Take your choice there. He's not there to read you your rights and take you in.
This movie is where Butch Rosenbalm learned how to enforce law. This is the movie. No matter what he tells you. No. I like the fact that they get into the sheriff race in this movie, because it's the only movie that really, it's the only Earp movie that touches upon it. What did you think of that?
Yeah, one of the things about this that it's not, I think a lot of people don't get or get mentioned. It's not like one day the Earps in the Clanton gang with all of its various members just said, and screw it, let's shoot each other. I mean, there's a lot of things going on that have gone on that caused this, the probably the most legendary gunfight in American history, at least in the Old West, to happen. So it's dealing with the sheriff's race, and I mean, you can do a whole film about the Earps and the Clantons, and you don't even have to get to the gunfight. I mean, you just, if you tell if you were trying to tell the whole story, if you will, about what happened. So yeah, dealing with that, I think it gives a deeper motivation. It shows where these characters are coming from and what's going on, and it helps round them out, and we understand them a little better.
Yeah, it really does too. This isn't, now you do get that sort of same build in Wyatt Earp with, as we've mentioned too, with Tombstone though too. Tombstone is more about the end of Wyatt Earp's life, like the later half of Wyatt Earp's life. It's not the entire story. Where Wyatt Earp is the complete historical version, which is cool. And with this, you get the gunfight at the OK Corral as your start. Then you get now you do get the actual trial. You get the trial of the Earps and the result of the gunfight. That actually did happen. The trial did happen where testimonies were given about how the gunfight went down. That's true. So that, I'm glad they put that in Hour of the Gun, which is really cool. Again, they did, because that's the thing with historical accuracy. You either do or you don't put it in. It's a choice, mainly. Yep. And the fact that they choose to put that the trial in, I think, to me, is really cool and really important. Because what we're going to see later, I agree with this. Wyatt Earp went to he didn't. I do think that James Gardner's Wyatt Earp is a little more accurate than what people give credit for. I do think he went to go execute the people who executed his brothers. He wasn't.
I mean, you have a brother and someone kills him. You want revenge. I mean, who doesn't understand that?
Well, everybody understands it. I think too that he's so good at this, James Gardner. He's really one of the most underrated Western actors we get to see in life. What do you think, Butch?
Oh yes, yeah. And this is very much a good character, because everything I've ever read about James Gardner, the person, what a great guy is, what a great friend he is. Everybody likes him. Everybody wanted to work with him. Just, he's in my mind, he's, I grew up watching Rocket Files, so I knew him from that first off. He's kind of he's the guy, if you will, every guy wants to have a beer with, but he's also the guy that could probably take your girlfriend home that night too. So, but his, if you will, his range is shown in this film. I mean, he's just, there's no halfway about it. I mean, there is something character wise that happens to Wyatt in this film, and he crosses the line, and he, screw it, this is what I'm doing. And God help you if you're in his way. He's coming for you, and you're going to wish that you weren't there.
Yeah, I love where he's got this guy. He's like, how much should they pay you to watch my brother be shot? And oh my God, it's like, you're thinking, dude, don't answer that. Don't answer it at all. And he does, and he gives him a chance. And it's in every way an execution, every way. And you're like, how the hell did James Gardner not win an Oscar for this?
Or at least be nominated.
Right. Right. Great performance. Just again, you have a really great director, and the way he shoots the. By the way, we get a Robert Ryan some Robert Ryan sightings in this movie.
Yes,
Not and to leave him out.
He plays I hate to say this, he plays such a delicious Ike Clanton. He's so much fun to watch. I mean, a good villain, especially you can tell that the actor seems to be having fun doing this. It brings so much to it, and he's not the only one. There's William Shallard as Judge Spencer, and Dennis Hopper as the younger Billy Clanton. There's quite a bit of I won't say famous, but if you are a movie buff like we are, names and faces, you're like, hey, it's that guy.
I think too with this movie, the one thing I'll give Robert Ryan a lot of credit for, and I secretly think he's the reason in later films we get Bohan, because the actual historical sheriff of Tombstone. Because we don't get that in My Darling Clementine. We don't get that in Gunfight at the OK Corral, and we don't get that in this movie. We don't get the name Bohan. We don't get that until Tombstone and Wyatt Earp, and I think secretly, and I'll give Robert Ryan that credit. I think Robert Ryan's portrayal as Ike Clanton is, to me, a mix between Bohan and Ike Clanton. I'm not saying he's doing it deliberately, but the way he does it, he's very business-like heel. He's very like, I'll hire a gun or I'll fire a gun, and I'll pay to bribe this guy, blackmail this guy. And I secretly think he's the reason later on we get the actual historical sheriff of Bohan in later Earp movies, if you will.
Yeah, very much could be. Again, if you're a Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday or Superman and Batman, and everything that he was wonderful and great, it's not a whole lot of fun to watch the gunfight and the vendetta. But if you have, let's say at times morally questionable folks, still presumably trying to do the right thing, or at least take care of their family, was there's I don't know how much of the controversies and such about the vendetta ride that you may have read or know about. And all these people were like, oh, he's horrible, and he was taking the law into his own hands. It was like, they followed him to a train station and were going to kill his. You dick about it, yeah. But you know what? Trying to keep him and his family alive. So I mean, it's like I totally understand why he did it.
I've talked about this before. That look, Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday were best friends, but also you have to look at the time they lived in. They were living in a time of when law was constantly being broken. And though I will say he had the same law he did in Dodge City that he had in Tombstone, Arizona. Do not carry firearms. When you got to turn in your firearms. And some people view that as a stupid law. And if you think it is, it is. I'm not here to debate it. I do think that, though, too, if the town sets out a law at that time, you should follow suit. At the time, though, too, again, he's dealing with people who are criminals, who are stealing. Also, again, like you've pointed out too, their feud they didn't decide to both start shooting at each other. It was, again, this movie here gets into the sheriff race, and I do think the sheriff race has a lot more to do with the actual events than we'll ever hear. Though, again, I can't prove that. That's my opinion. Because I think, again, Bohan, I do think was to a degree dirty enough to side with the Cowboys, if you will, and to have no problem having someone killed. Again, I can't prove any of that because that's the thing with Bohan. He's either with both Tombstone and Wyatt Earp. At Tombstone, he's portrayed as this cowardly-esque in the background sheriff. And Wyatt Earp, he's portrayed as this snake in the grass con man sheriff who's trying to, at one point in time, keep the peace, but he'll turn a blind eye to the bloodshed. And I secretly think that, in my opinion, Wyatt Earp has the more accurate Bohan. By the way, played by a great actor named Mark Harmon. I secretly think Wyatt Earp is the more accurate portrayal of Bohan. Now, I can't prove any of that because, again, there are things that aren't exactly documented because so much shit was going on at that time. Records were hard to keep track of. And again, but look, was Wyatt Earp wanted by the law? Was there arrest warrants out for Wyatt Earp? Yes, there were, to the end of his life. But there are also arrest warrants for Ike Clanton, for Johnny Ringo. By the way, Johnny Ringo, who, again, I've said this, I know it's romanticized that, oh, Doc Holliday killed Johnny Ringo. Oh, no, it was Wyatt Earp. I don't think it was either. I think Johnny Ringo took his own life. Because the Vendetta ride had Johnny Ringo so paranoid. Ike Clanton was not killed at the Vendetta ride. Ike Clanton ran away. Ike Clanton left Johnny Ringo hanging. That's what nobody really mentions, and we didn't really mention it either, but I'll mention it now. Ike Clanton left Johnny Ringo hanging at the Vendetta ride. He got the hell out of there and left Ringo basically to die. Now, Ringo, I think, realizing the situation, either way, I'm going to catch a bullet, so I'll do it myself. And he dies near water. That's just... Sorry, go ahead. I went off a tangent there.
One of the things, talking about Ike running off, that one of the things they tried to do at the hearing, I don't think trial is correct term, the Earps saying they murdered the McLaurys and Billy, but they were like, well, the Earps went there to kill, and they had murder in their heart, and they were going to shoot everybody. And it's like, again, Tombstone and Wyatt Earp. Ike Clanton throws his hands up. I got no gun. And Wyatt Earp says something to the effect of, when the fight begins, either get to fighting or get out here, and just pushes him out of the way. Now, if that was somebody coming to kill every one of the Clantons that he could, Ike would be dead.
Yes. Yeah.
But he's not. So at least at the beginning, when the OK Corral gunfight happened, it was there for what they were there for. They said they were going there for, to disarm them. And plus, Ike had been going around, had been up most of the night and drinking and threatening the Earps and Doc Holliday. So,
And look, I know people are going to look up testimony. Yes, testimony does testify that Virgil Earp drew first. Here's a newsflash for you. That just means Virgil Earp was faster on the draw. That's all that means.
That means he got the gun out and shot. That doesn't mean he is. It's an interesting thing. I don't think people realize, if you and I are having a gunfight,
right?
That you may draw first, but I may be faster and get my gun out and shoot you before that. And that's how you got away with the duel. Well, it was self-defense. He drew his gun.
Yep.
And I think it's one of those cases where everybody's kind of like, mm-hmm. But also, it was true. Going back to one of your points about Johnny Behan, you said something about how he kind of turned a blind eye. Apparently, a lot of people in Tombstone turned a little bit of a blind eye to the Clintons because they brought in so much money.
Yeah.
They're riding into town, shooting their guns and raising heck, but then they go and spend a bunch of money at the gambling tables and red light district and whatnot. It's good for economy. Okay. So they kind of keep quiet and don't say a whole lot. When you're a businessman, that's what you do sometimes. Sometimes, there's a lot of big businesses. Around here, there's a Walmart. And when I worked with Walmart, if we were unofficially told if people shoplift, and I forget it, I think at the time, if it was less than $50, they didn't prosecute.
Yeah.
Which I think is, I don't know. Personally, I think it's kind of silly, but also I understand you don't want lawyers going to trial the other day because somebody stole a piece of gum or whatever.
Yeah.
You're a businessman. If somebody's bringing you in money, you worry about the money. So, yeah, there were people in Tombstone that just kind of turned a blind eye because, oh, hey, they're going to raise a bunch of heck and do all this, but we're going to make a bunch of money. So,
to quote the $1 Million Man, everyone's got his price, and everybody at Tombstone did.
Yeah. What you're running a bar for? To sell drinks and make money.
Yeah, that's the thing too. Like in Tombstone, the cowboys are built like a mafia, if you will, and I do think that's somewhat of an accurate portrayal because they're bringing in lots of money, like you said, but they're also causing a fracas. And it's like, okay, we don't mind the money. I think there was a point in time where maybe the marshal of the town was like, okay, they're bringing in a lot of money, but they're raising an awful lot of hell, which is costing us money. And I do think I think that's something that doesn't get this. I think Wyatt Earp hinted at this a bit, that the marshal in Tombstone, he wanted Wyatt Earp to come there. Now, I do think Wyatt Earp did go there, but I don't think Wyatt Earp wanted to be a lawman anymore, too. I think he more wanted to be in gambling, which, again, gambling, gets you money. I mean, he had a friend who got a lot of money named Doc Holliday, so he knew, hey, I can make money. I don't really want to be a lawman anymore. I'll retire. I do think that's what Tombstone gets right, that why they didn't want to be lawmen anymore. And well, here's this opportunity for you to be a lawman because now the marshal is dead, and Morgan and Virgil chose to become the new marshals, and Wyatt Earp's just like, oh Jesus Christ, why me? What did I do?
That's actually one of my favorite scenes in Tombstone when he's like Virgil's talking to Wyatt and he's like, and then he looks at Morgan. He's like, will you please try to talk some sense into him? And he slides his shirt, his vest back, kind of hangs his head. And he said, you always said you got to back your brother's play. And you can just see him like, oh, God. And yeah, he apparently he was approached when he got off the train and offered, would you be interested in being? No. Usually gambling's a little bit safer of an occupation than being a sheriff. So, you're getting what, $35 a month, and if you're lucky, they'll bury you when you get killed. So
now, for anybody who's going to try to bring up Wild Bill Hickok getting shot at while playing poker, let me just stop you there in your tracks when you go to the comment section of this video. Wild Bill Hickok, prior to being shot in the head, in the back of the head, the person who shoots him, he lent money to after the person lost money in poker to people. And Wild Bill Hickok said, if don't come to the table if you can't, pay for your bet. That's all he said. And that the very next day or so is what cost Wild Bill Hickok his life, because that very same man who he said that to shot him in the back of the head. There you go.
Again, he said usually gambling.
Usually, unless you go to Deadwood. I mean, what? No, I just think it depends on. I think with the West, when you get into Western historically, it all depends on the situation, and you could literally look at that with any Western historical figures, whether it's the Earps, whether it's Wyatt Earp, Doc Holliday, whether it's William H. Bonney, whether it's Butch and Sundance. It all depends on the circumstance they're put in or they put themselves in. And are you always going to get accuracy issues? Yes, because there's more than one version that someone tells throughout history. But eventually you do get to the bottom of the truth if you look deep enough, like me and Butch have. I didn't just happen upon these movies yesterday. Neither did Butch. So,
it's 2 weeks ago. No. There's a somewhat famous saying that I really love. There's 3 sides to every story: your side, my side, and the truth. And that doesn't mean everybody's a liar, which is what I thought it meant when you're a kid. It's you and I are standing there, and there's a car crash that happens in front of us. We're going to tell similar stories, but they're going to be different because, if nothing else, I'm pretty sure I'm a little bit taller than you. So you may notice something in the car that I may be like, oh, I didn't see that. Or I might be looking at the driver and you're looking at the passenger, or I'm looking at the car that hits them and you weren't really paying a lot of attention. It's just, and then you have to go through the filter of people's intelligence and upbringing and background. And that car's flying through here 150 miles an hour and took them out. No, they were doing 30, and the driver just thought, they turned the wrong way, So, you can't, short of doing like what we're doing, literally doing right here, recording this, and we're going to put it on a website that people can look at. Nobody can say, well, Butch and Joel started talking about that old Batman TV show. We can go to the record and we didn't talk about that. I mean, I know that's kind of a silly example, but there weren't too many recording devices back when Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday were running around. So, it's always do, and somebody's trying to tell a good story on top of the historical fact. And as we all know, big callback, when the story is better than the truth, what do you print, Joel?
The legend.
You go.
I honestly think that's the case for William H. Bonney. But that's another topic for another time. Yeah. Oh, there you go. Really, both are really great. First of all, what do you give, scale 1 to 10? What do you give Gunfight at the OK Corral?
I'll give it a 7.
I'll give it a 6.5. Simply because the movie's fun. There's nothing boring about either of these movies. Hour of the Gun, scale 1 to 10. What do you give?
Around to 8.5.
Yeah, we have the same score. I mean, that movie is holy shit. Is it dark? Yes. Here in a minute.
What you're saying me, and I'm like, I didn't say anything.
No, that was my son. But yeah, I give it 8.5. I'm with you. Let's see. Is there anything you want to add before we go?
Just for anybody that comes around to watch these films, Hour of the Gun is a much more serious tone.
Yeah.
I'm with what Joel said. It's probably closer to being accurate, or as close to accurate as we'll probably, as we can get 100 and something years later.
Yeah, it's probably the more darker, accurate version of Wyatt Earp that we didn't get out of Costner or
Kurt Russell.
Don't get me wrong, they were dark, but they weren't as dark as James Garner.
Oh.
But rest in peace, good sir. We miss you. James Garner. But yeah, next Friday, I have a very, very interesting topic for you. I've been wanting to discuss it with you. Now, again, I'll wait to pick a Western because I want to discuss this for you. I want to get your thoughts on a potential Superman legacy movie.
The one that's coming up?
Yes.
I'm gonna say something I read on Facebook because I think it's right. Henry Cavill and the new guy that's been selected, it's like the new guy, somebody said, that's when your mom tells you got Henry Cavill at home. I can't see a big difference looking at them, still photographed. It's like, why not still? I would love to see Henry Cavill play Superman in a more traditional film rather than the cynical pieces of crap that Zack Snyder made. Sorry, that's exactly my opinion. I think he's a good actor. He just, and I think Zack Snyder is a pretty good film director, but he's apparently a very cynical person. And to me,
yes,
showing my shirt here. For those that can't read it backward, it says Super Dad. Superman is a sign of hope. He should not be grim and greedy. I don't want to read about a grim and greedy Superman. That's somebody else.
Yeah. We'll discuss it next because, by the way, announcement: our videos will be every Friday from now on. So. So every Friday from now on, we'll forgo the Western talk for 1 week. I want to discuss Superman with Butch. Are you game for next Friday, my friend?
I am, sir.
Okay. Butch, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Raiders play Monday night against the Steelers. So there's that.
At least my Florida State Seminoles won today.
Hey, how about them Oregon Ducks?
Oh, God, I love that game. I watched most of it today, and I was just loving every moment of it.
Did you see what I put on Facebook?
No.
I put a dedication to Colorado. You got to go look at it.
I just kept thinking, I guess those fellas aren't ready for prime time.
For YouTube, I'm Joel Sayers. That's Butch Rosenbalm. Butch, buddy, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Take care, bud.
You too, Jules. Take care.
Bye.